All right. So I wanted to say hello and welcome to everybody who's here to Burbank's first ever virtual town hall. So we're thrilled to have every single candidate joining us this evening. We have 2 open seats this year and a wealth of wonderful candidates to choose from. And we just wanted to provide a little help to you in casting your vote. So thank you to all of our city council candidates for coming, and welcome to everyone. We are recording this meeting and we'll be sharing it on social media, so other Burbank citizens who are unable to make it tonight can watch it later. So now I'm going to pass it on to our esteemed moderator, Emily Weisberg, and we'll have a fun back and forth with timing, and we'll tell you how that works.
Hi, everybody. Super honored to be here and excited to hear from our phenomenal city council candidates yet again. I've been lucky enough to help moderate a previous candidate forum, and I'm happy to be doing it again to help out Indivisible. So a little bit of information about how tonight is going to go. We'll start off by giving each candidate 90 seconds to both introduce themselves and respond to the first question, which I'll tell you about in a minute. And then for the subsequent questions, you'll also have 90 seconds. Joy is going to be, I think, she's going to have a sign that says 30 seconds when you have 30 seconds left. And she also has a super fancy pants dinner bell that she's going to ding to let you know when time is up. And I'll also let you know. Obviously, when you hear the bell, you can finish your sentence, but you want to finish your sentence. So, and then at the end of the questions that have been submitted by the community, there'll be a period of time where people can, in the chat window, and we'll talk through this more when we get there, can chat me privately if they'd like to submit questions to the council candidates. The first questions will be to all candidates. When we get to the center section where it is going to be chat option, you can create questions or ask questions to individual candidates, but when we get there, we'll talk more about it. So first things first is we're going to do that the 90-second intro, and let me pose the question to you. And I have an order that's been given to me by the fabulous Joy and Marty for how we're going to go through. We'll start alphabetically, and then they've kind of mixed it up, which is pretty fancy. Are there any questions I can answer for any of the candidates before we begin as far as the structure of the conversation? Everybody good? Okay, so along with introducing yourself, the question is as follows. So it is the year 2025. All of us have flying cars. What is your vision for Burbank, and how do you see us getting from here to there? So we'll begin with Mr. Anthony as we're going alphabetically.
Hello, thank you for putting this together. I appreciate what Indivisible Media City has done over the years, and this is just one more notch in their belt of community activism. My name is Constantine Anthony, and I am running for Burbank City Council. I believe that in 5 years from now, what I'd like to see from Burbank is us halfway to 100% renewable energy. I have a 10-year plan to get us completely off of fossil fuels at the city level, and 5 years is a halfway mark. I'd like to see traffic and congestion reduced by investing in our infrastructure and our mass transit. I'm chair of the Transportation Commission here in Burbank, and I have a vision for a robust transit system here in the city. 5 years from now, we'll have put together a lot more affordable housing. My plans include a 20% minimum on affordable housing on all new construction. I want to see a new parcel tax passed by the city that is dedicated to funding the schools. The schools failed twice now to pass a parcel tax. It's time for the city to step up and do that. So we'll have passed that. We'll be funding our schools. I want to see a renter like myself on city council to really look out for the tenants and put tenant protections in place. Measure RC is on the ballot, so that's going to be a few years down the line, having been passed and protected, and people will be in their homes. We're going to see a lot more seniors safe and secure with their affordable housing, and the city as a community will be closer together.
Thank you. Ms. Besson, same question.
Hi, I'm Linda Besson. I'm a nearly 30-year resident of Burbank, so I've seen a lot of changes in Burbank during that time. Some have been great, some have been not so great. What I would envision, what I would want to see in 5 years is a rethinking of Burbank as a city, meaning let's focus on our neighborhoods. Let's focus on the areas that are being neglected. Most of the focus has been on downtown Burbank. Let's focus on little pockets like West Burbank and North Burbank and the area around Burbank Boulevard and the area around Olive. Those areas can be developed just to service those neighborhoods, meaning that there's less traffic because services are there and they don't have to travel around Burbank, meaning that things are more convenient and we are supporting local small businesses that keep our city prosperous and strong, meaning that, see the sign, meaning that we have public transportation so that if people want to go up and down Burbank Boulevard, up and down Olive, they have convenient, affordable, efficient, environmentally sound transportation that is affordable. So I think we need to take a look at how we function as a city and reestablish our goals along those lines.
Thank you very much. Mr. Govin, am I pronouncing your last name right? Oh, you're muted. Unmute and correct me. Oh, you're still muted.
Michael, on the lower left is a microphone. Just
Thank you.
hit that microphone. You'll see the mute control.
There we go.
All right,
Can you hear me now?
we can.
Okay. You can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So in the next few years, I see a few things that should be in place. Like, for example, I still see a thriving city. However, I also see a police department and a fire department that's more participatory within the community. Some community affairs to show the public that they are actually here working in community effort and not just taking a paycheck. I think that makes it a lot more exciting. And I also see more needs for the disabled community and senior citizens. I don't like the idea personally that some of these people end up in a home and they're stuck. We need to be more helpful in those areas and care for them as well. I see a police department that is not defunded. Although there are some thoughts on this, let me just make it clear, there's nobody chasing anybody down the street because they're Black in our community or any other race by the police department to beat them up. It's not happening. So whoever put that thought out there is absolutely incorrect. And I also see a filming commission because we need to bring business back to Burbank in a different way and a bigger way. Over the hill in Hollywood, a lot of business is leaving, but not here in Burbank. We're actually thriving. And since we are thriving, we want to keep that industry here.
Thank you. Ms.
Thank you.
Manukian, did I pronounce the last name correctly?
Yes, that was perfect.
Sweet.
Hello, everybody. Firstly, I want to thank you all for having me, and thank you all who are attending. I look forward to meeting with you more in the future. To answer the question, I would say the first priority I think I have is creating more affordable housing for the people that live here. Whether you are a renter or you are looking to buy a home here, I would like to see us build more affordable housing units. I would like to see us implement some form of rent control measure, so that people can feel comfortable in their homes. They don't feel like they're going to get evicted at any second. I think that's one of my top priorities. The second one, as an educator, I would have to say is education funding. Whether that come from a new parcel tax, I don't know if that will pass in the future or not, or whether that comes from reallocating city funds or finding some other way where our schools can make money. I was speaking to someone a few weeks ago about they had an idea to, put advertisements in Memorial Field to kind of raise money for our schools. So I'm open to, finding any way to raise education funding. And lastly, I would say I would want, city council and your elected officials to be more transparent with the community. I think that everybody has amazing ideas for how we can make Burbank better, but those ideas are never going to be implemented if city council and your elected officials are not listening. So I would like to see a more transparent and open council that can, take ideas and implement them.
Thank you. Mr. Herman, embarrassingly, I'm a teacher who clearly doesn't know my alphabet. I skipped right over you, so I'm so sorry. So please, whenever you're ready to respond.
No, not a problem. And thank you all for having us, and I truly appreciate this opportunity. I apologize, I'm driving now. We had a minor family emergency I needed to attend to, but this was very important to me, so I wanted to make sure that I was able to be part of this forum. So once again, my name is Paul Herman. I'm a third-year resident.
Paul, your audio is cutting out.
See,
We may have to come back to Paul when he's in a better spot.
Okay, I think
in Burbank, first of all, is, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Are you there?
I am. I apologize for that.
All right, I think it looks like the connection is a little bit better.
Okay. So real quick, I'll go through this very quickly. What I'd like to see in 2025 is economic recovery from this COVID pandemic, recovery both for public health and for our economy, our local city budget, as well as our local economy in Burbank. What I'd also like to see is our city be well on the way of meeting the housing goals that the city council has set, of building 12,000 units over the next 15 years. And the way that we're going to get to that is by updating our specific plans for downtown Burbank and Golden State area, and allowing for ministerial review process, approval process for new projects in the area. Finally, what I'd like to see is with BWP, an investment in energy storage. If we're ever going to be able to get to 100% renewable, we need to invest in energy storage. And that's something that I'd really like to see our utility invest in. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilmember Murphy.
Could I hear the question again? I'm
Absolutely
confused by the answer, so I want to see.
Yeah, so the question is, it's the year 2025. What is your vision for Burbank in 2025, and how will we get there?
Okay. I thought you said something about flying cars, and I'm thinking transportation.
No, I made a bad joke.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. My bad. My name's Tim Murphy. Thanks for having us all here. I'm on the city council now. I'm serving the end of Will Rogers' term. What I see for our future is pandemic over. I think we're managing it as well as any city in the country, even though we're in LA County in California, which as a whole isn't doing all that well. We need to map out a plan to reopen our businesses, especially the small businesses, which need extra attention, extra help. We're doing that with a committee established. Paul Herman's on it, and he's helping and doing a great job. We've got somebody from the studios and Tom Flavin from the chamber. After that, obviously, if cars are flying around, we don't need roads, we don't need streetlights. So that's going to save us a lot of money, which we'll be able to spend on social justice, on expanding mental health. Also, we'll be able to, look at programs. I think it's going to be a while before we're able to go through all of the process to remove any kind of impediments or any kind of racism in terms of hiring, impediments to advancing, things like that. Right now, we have the police commission focusing on a number of issues, and they're going to render a report in December, which we're all looking forward to. I'm sure we. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schultz.
Well, thank you very much, Emily. It's so nice to be here with all of you and with all of my colleagues who have thrown their hat into the ring to run for council. It's no easy feat. My name is Nick Schultz. I work as a Deputy Attorney General at the California Department of Justice, where I prosecute human trafficking, public corruption, and various forms of financial fraud. And I'm running because of that question that was posed, Emily. When I think about the year 2025, I think about a Burbank that is safe, affordable, livable, and sustainable. A Burbank that has made it through this unprecedented global health and economic crisis. I envision a Burbank where people can afford to live and work. And I think there are many, many ways that we get there, but here's my plan. If I have the good fortune of being elected as one of 2 council members this term, I plan to put together in my first 100 days, by working to build consensus with my colleagues, a Burbank-specific economic recovery task force. Now, you can go to my website and read more about the composition of that task force, but it's quite simple. We need to re-examine the barriers to doing business in Burbank. I envision new neighborhoods, specifically in the Golden State District. New neighborhoods that are defined by mixed-use development where there's ground floor space with new opportunities for business. And I envision more minority and women-owned businesses because we've reevaluated those barriers to doing business in the city. I see Burbank getting serious about tackling the housing crisis in Southern California by adding more affordable housing options while also preserving what makes us so special, the historic nature of our neighborhoods, like the Rancho where I live. I envision city staff, boards, and commissions being much younger and more diverse, with new voices and bold new leadership taking the helm to tackle some of the biggest issues of our time. I see continued investments in our parks and our open spaces, public schools that continue to be a shining beacon for the rest of the region. I see Burbank leading the way on climate recovery.
That's
Thank you very much. You're muted.
Joy, just so you know, I didn't hear the bell.
Okay.
So maybe louder bell?
Yeah, okay.
More cowbell? I don't know. Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Ms. Takahashi.
Thank you for inviting me here today. My name is Tamala Takahashi. I've lived in Burbank for 21 years. We raised our 3 kids here. Our kids are 22, 19, and 16. And part of the reason why I'm running is for our kids' future and for their kids as well. And some of the things that I see for our future in Burbank are around housing and bettering our housing situation here, especially for the missing middle and our workforce housing. And in a way that really fits our community and is appropriate for Burbank. And one of those ways that I support is gentle density. And I also am supporting, seeing, 5 years from now, a more diversity in our local economy. So we have a really good economy here with our entertainment industry and other economies too, but I'd like to see more diversity in tech and health research. I'd also like to see what's called a 20-minute city. I think that's something we could actually achieve as a 20-minute city, where anywhere you want to go, anything you need to do is within 20 minutes of travel time, public transport or walking or biking. And for my kids, I want to see a safer city for our kids. My daughter got in an accident the other day. She was hit by a car and she broke her leg on her bike. We need to have a safer community for our kids. It's really safe already, but even safer. And I want to also piggyback on one of the other candidates talking about solar. I think that's a really important movement forward for us, is solar, as well as one of my pet projects is the advanced water purification system. I want to get involved with that. So thank you for inviting me here today.
Thank you so much. All right, we're going to move on to the next question, and I will call on each of the candidates in the order that's been decided upon by our fearless leaders. So the first question is this. We know in the city of Burbank, 59% of our Burbank residents are renters, which comes as no surprise to anybody. And we know that with SB 50 being defeated, homelessness on the rise, this is a huge issue. So can you speak to how you'll address this emergent issue of housing and our homelessness crisis? And we'll begin with Ms. Besson.
Thank you. Homelessness is a multi-layered problem. Lack of affordable housing is only one of the reasons. Other reasons are domestic violence. 40% of all women who are homeless due to domestic violence. And as the president of a homeless shelter, I know that finding housing for those women and children right now is horribly difficult. We also are talking about income inequality. We're talking about lack of housing. We're talking about veterans issues. We're talking about substance abuse and mental health. So there is no one-size-fits-all solution for homelessness. But if we're going to talk about affordable housing, let's talk about getting the solution to that problem out of the hands of developers and into the hands of the residents of Burbank. In other words, I've talked with many residents who want to build ADUs, accessory dwelling units, on their property. ADUs traditionally have a much lower rent than developments with multiple apartment units. But our permit department is very, very stagnant and bureaucratic and makes people wait until up to a year to get those permits. There are people who could use that rental money as part of their income. And that money would then stay in Burbank, be spent in our economy. So that's one possible solution that we could talk about for affordable housing.
Emily, you're
Logan.
I'm sorry.
It's your turn to respond. 90 seconds.
Thank you.
Sure.
First of all, when it comes to homelessness, it is a multi-layer situation. And I would say most of the people that are homeless today have some form of mental disability, which is sad. You know, I had an opportunity to sit down with the police chief of Burbank. And we spoke about this because their idea is that they don't want to arrest anybody, so we'll put that one aside. They do help people get to a shelter, but it's up to them to want to stay. I don't believe in any type of housing that is for rent control, because within 10 years, if you do the simple math, 7% and you multiply whatever rent is today, let's say it's $2,000 for a family, it's going to be $4,000 within 10 years, unless they dump it into a corporation. They can change that amount at any time. These are issues that are really at hand. We can't control the economy that way, but when there's competitive pricing, it sure makes it a whole lot easier for people who care about the people that remain here. And if you force it on people, then they become more anti-everything. We need to work with our community instead of just dumping it. That is the thought I have on this one. And I do care about all of it. And I believe there is a solution here.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Herman.
So I will say, as it relates to affordable housing, I don't know if ADUs are the answer to the problem here. I think that our single family neighborhoods in Burbank are unique and special and something that we want to protect. I know that my wife's in-laws live in Los Angeles, which is promoting ADU laws for many years now. And the street she grew up on has changed tremendously. There's 16 ADUs on her street. Her parents can't wait to sell their house and leave. They don't know their neighbors anymore. Traffic is unbearable. The parking is unbearable. Trash issues have become constant. So, as far as affordable housing goes, what we need to do is build more affordable housing. And in order to do that, we need to place that housing where it's most
Paul, we lost
downtown.
you again.
We need to do it in a careful manner.
You're back.
Sorry, that housing in those areas needs to be built in a with consensus of the community. It needs to be a part of a publicly approved process. But we can do that, and it's got to be streamlined. It's got to be we got to streamline the entitlement process. As far as homelessness goes, homelessness is a big issue. It's a regional issue, but in Burbank, it definitely impacts our families, and we need to be able to protect them. What we need to do is advocate to get more money from the county through the Measure HHH funds. Burbank only gets 5 cents on the dollar of everything contributes towards that fund.
That's time.
So, thank you. Thank you very much. Ms. Manukian.
I think, just as everyone else has said, dealing with creating affordable housing is probably the first step in dealing with the housing crisis. And it's not just about, okay, well, Burbank is going to build several new developments and they're dedicating a portion of it to lower income families and lower income people. I don't think that that is enough to necessarily solve the problem. I think we need to be dedicating entire developments to lower income people and lower income families, because obviously to solve the housing crisis, we need to increase the supply of housing. When you turn your attention to homelessness and homeless people that are here, I think that it's very easy to just say, well, we need to create housing and then there's housing for them. It's like other people have mentioned, it's a multi-level issue. I think we need to bulk up our temporary aid centers in terms of bringing in therapists, bringing in counselors, and bringing in people that can really help these homeless people get back on their feet. If they do have some mental health issues, we can help address those mental health issues. And through the combination of all of those efforts that we're putting, we're able to, equip these people to go out and not only get a house, but get jobs and be, better members in terms of, how they're able to live in our society.
Thank you. As a quick reminder, or for the first time before we go to Councilmember Murphy, if a question that you'd like to ask a candidate comes up as you're listening to the responses, please send it to me in a private chat. We will ask them in the order that they're received when we get to that second section. But just letting you know, if something comes up, go ahead and I will ask. I'll ask them in the order received. So thank you, and Council Member.
45 seconds to deal with two of the most complex issues in the history of the world. Good luck. Housing. Burbank is doing a really good job on the housing issue considering the tools we have. They took redevelopment away from us. At that time, the city could pick areas, call them blighted, and work with a developer, private-public partnerships, and indicate what they wanted. Now, we indicate through a specific plan where we'd like to see things built, and we wait for the developer, and we try to massage their project to get more affordable housing. We try to provide incentives so that we can get more housing than is required by the state law. I agree with some of the things were already said. ADUs are part of the solution. They should be affordable housing. I proposed a lottery plan on that. My colleagues didn't go for it. The best thing with regard to housing is to build it, the larger projects on transportation areas where you have some kind of hub where people can walk and bike and do whatever. As far as homelessness is going, we have a very good plan that apparently very few people know about. It's a multifaceted plan. We have 94 homeless when we started the year. We have 84 in the Room Key program. We have an additional 19 people that have returned home to their families through another program that we have. We're really making a lot of progress on this problem. And
thank you, Tim. That's time.
More later. 90 seconds. Whew.
I know.
Good luck.
Mr. Schultz.
Thank you, Emily. Look, I believe that our housing crisis is merely a matter of supply and demand. We have too much demand and not nearly enough supply to meet the demand. So, look, not to repeat some of the excellent points made by my colleagues, but ADUs are certainly part of the solution. I would also note that we have a tremendous number of excellent nonprofits and organizations right here in Burbank that are doing tremendous work. Burbank Housing Corp is a standard. Look at the fantastic work that they do, and I'd love to empower them to continue taking steps there. But as I was saying in my previous question, we really have to look at building new neighborhoods. We have to look at new opportunities for growth and living right here in the city of Burbank. And I think the Golden State District naturally lends itself to that because of the unique placement and proximity to mass transit options. Now, here's the concern. You don't just add housing and drop it in the middle of where nobody wants to be. So you have to ensure that you're building these neighborhoods up, that you're investing in parks and open spaces so that someone who lives in a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom condominium or apartment has somewhere to take their kid on the weekend. We got to make sure that we're not just building more retail space for big box stores, but retail space for bookstores and coffee shops. And on the issue of protecting our tenants who are feeling a lot of anxiety right now, I would just note that Sacramento has already passed Assembly Bill 1482, which does cap annual rent increases at 5% and puts in place just cause eviction protections. So that gives them the housing security and stability that they need right now. But the only long-term solution to this problem is greater investments in our affordable housing options in the city of Burbank.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. I also just want to ask candidates to please refrain from responding to questions in the chat. That gives you an unfair advantage and inherently more time to respond. So please only respond during your allocated 90 seconds. Thank you. Next, Ms. Takahashi.
Thank you. Again, 90 seconds, like Mr. Murphy said, to answer two of the biggest questions in the city. So one of the things that comes up pretty often about increasing housing is these larger developments. We got to put large developments near transit, which is part of the solution. However, those developments are expensive. And oftentimes it's difficult to get low-cost housing into those developments. We do try to put them in, but it's difficult to do. So those are part of the solution. We do need to build around transit, and we do need to encourage our developers to do so. But we also have to look at how to put density or put population into our city in a way that doesn't impact our city negatively. And that's what I call gentle density. We'd already talked earlier about ADUs. And ADUs is a way to pepper more housing into the city throughout the city in a way that our single family homes and neighborhoods still look the same. There may be a little bit more parking, a little bit more traffic, but we are looking at a future where there's more public transportation and ways to get around. I also see more workforce housing and more micro housing as possibilities as well, because those are easier to build, they're less expensive, and they're easier to access for development, and individuals can do it as well. And then for a homeless, the thing about homelessness is that most of our homeless are invisible. So we see there's a homeless on the street, but most of them are homeless we don't even see. And the best way to address homelessness is to address it before people even become homeless. So in situations where people can't pay their rent, domestic violence, we have kids in the foster system that age out. This is where the work needs to be done, and where most of the work in the city is being done, but we don't see it. As Mr. Murphy said, most people don't know about it. So that's where we need to focus our resources, is mainly around keeping people from being homeless in the first place.
Thank you. And last for this question, Mr. Anthony.
Yeah, 59% of Burbank residents are renters, and we have 282 homeless in the city at last count. Of 8 candidates, I'm the only renter, and I'm the only formerly homeless person running in this race. So I have a very personal connection to all of these issues. We need to pass a 20% affordable housing minimum requirement on all new construction. We need to fast track the ADU constructions. We need to create emergency bridge housing here in Burbank. We're one of the only cities left in LA County that does not have emergency bridge housing. City of Hope in North Hollywood has it. Glendale has Essentia. In fact, Glendale, they were one of the few cities to reduce their homeless numbers last year. So we need to follow that model. There's actionable items we can take. We can't rely on the state to do everything for us, or the federal government. AB 1482, although the governor signed that rent control bill last year, it has a 10-year sunset. We need to pass Measure RC to get it permanently. And it's crafted for local control so that our local landlord-tenant commission has the authority on these issues, not some amoebus state body. We want to do things locally that fits for Burbank. So that's really what I'm pushing for. And that's what I endorse.
Thank you very much. We're going to shift to another question. And I think Joy is going to put into the chat, which I loved, the order of the candidates just to help you out because they can get a little confusing. But we will be starting with Mr. Gogan. The question is as follows. So all it takes is us looking outside our windows to see the damage from the wildfires that are raging all across the West Coast. We can experts, I'll say experts are pointing to climate change as one of the major motivators and major factors with these fires. So what plans do you have to address environmental concerns in Burbank and just overall issues of sustainability? You're muted, sir. Still muted.
Lower left, Michael. The control over the microphone.
All right, is that better?
Yes, we can hear you now.
I don't know how that happened, so it's weird. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Okay. And now I can't even see myself, so I don't even know what's going on there. So the wildfires is something that has been taking place. Let's go back to the history of 1977. We used to have these back roads that were built to help clean up shrubbery throughout California and all the major forestry areas. I would question what Sacramento has been doing all these years, because it does have an effect on us down here. And that is where the responsibility should start, because we don't create those fires in Burbank, but they happen. And in those back roads, besides cleaning up shrubbery, they set up water tanks. They used to, but they haven't done that. And what used to be, after shrubbery was cleaned, 44 trees per acre, now there's 88. That is a fact. And I would question that before we move on, because it's horrible what we're going through right now, from the tip of California up north, all the way down to San Diego. It's an absolute mess. And we have a right to know, and I want to know why none of us here have spoken about it yet. Because it's not just global warming. It's right here in our own backyard, created by the people in Sacramento. And I'm really mad about it.
That's time, Michael.
Okay.
Thank you. Is Mr. Herman still on the call?
I am.
Oh, hello.
Hi there.
You look stationary too.
I am. Finally.
All right. Were you able to hear the question, or would you like me to repeat it?
No, I heard the question, and I agree with Mr. Gogan that, wildfire, mitigation is a real problem here in the state of California. It's something that we need to address. Forestry has been it's been through mismanagement in the state of California. That's something that we need to really take a look at, best practices, and figure out a way of, handling, our forests and, our environment here in California, to make sure we don't have issues like this that arise where we have, the entire state on fire, and, where the air quality is just utterly atrocious. As far as sustainability in Burbank, I'm on the Burbank Water and Power Board, and we talk a lot about sustainability in Burbank. We talk about, our sales for the utility have actually declined on an annual basis about 1%. That's due to conservation. We fully support conservation, but we would like to see those revenues increase. So we talk a lot about electrification, and that's something we'd really like to promote in the city of Burbank. We'd like to electrify, especially our transportation industry. Transportation in Los Angeles and Southern California is the #1 emitter of carbon and greenhouse gases in our region.
What up, my niggas?
Hey, who's that?
Me, Frank Ortiz, nigga.
Okay.
Let me try to find
My
him.
nigga. Shut your bitch ass up, nigga.
Hold on.
Me,
Sorry,
Manuel.
guys.
Manuel.
Hey, Michael Goggin, you sexy.
Oy. Zoom bombing is so fun. It's just like being back in my middle school classroom. Okay. I think for the moment, we are okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I removed that one, unless
I
there's more.
removed one more young man.
Thank you. And I think you had about 30 seconds left there, Paul, if you want to go.
So sorry to interrupt you like that.
No, it happens. I mean, this is the new world we're living in. So, electrification of our transportation industry is vital. More car charging stations. The Avion project that they're building, 1 million square feet of it by the airport, has charging stations for trucks. I mean, that's huge. If we get electrification of our transportation industry, it would be fantastic. So, that's it.
Thank you. And again, apologies for the interruption.
No worries.
Ms. Manukian.
I think, with regards to the wildfires or the fires that even happen up here in these mountains, I think one thing that we can do to combat that would be controlled burns throughout the year, so that, if there are fires that do happen to erupt, when they get to these areas that have already been burned through, the fires will go out, and then we won't have such a huge problem to deal with in terms of huge wildfires that take up acres and in terms of evacuations and things of that nature. Obviously, you know, I don't know a lot about fires, so it would also be open to, you know, speaking with our fire department and trying to figure out ways that and ideas that they have to control the fires that happen here. With regards to sustainability, I do have a lot of ideas. I probably won't be able to share all of them in this time, but, you know, I agree with the other candidates, and I would want to echo, you know, moving towards 100% renewable energy is something that I would like to see. You know, when we put up new developments, I would hope to ensure that, you know, they have solar panels attached to them. And I would also like to see us phase out, you know, single-use plastics. I think we started very great with the plastic bags in stores, but I would like to see us phase out, you know, the plastics that we use for takeout at restaurants and dining establishments, and kind of encourage, you know, composting, recycling, reusing, and provide a bit of education to our households here in terms of, you know, separating your recyclables and some ways that they can, you know, contribute to city sustainability.
Thank you, Ms. Manukian. Councilmember Murphy. Oh,
There we go. Sorry. As far as the wildfires are concerned, the only way we can address it is to join other cities and counties and put pressure on Sacramento, because it's a statewide problem. California's #1 industry is entertainment. The #2 is farming. And the wildfires are destroying our economy. We're not getting the tourists. We're not, you know, the farms are burning, the houses are burning, people are breathing bad air. I understand that most of the wildfires this year were started by lightning. I read an article recently that said that it might be tied to fracking, but there wasn't a connection that I understood. So we have to talk to the experts. We have to put together panels, understand it, figure it out any way we can, and see how we can attack it as a group. It's got to be done regionally. It can't be done by Burbank. Burbank doesn't have the pull. As far as the sustainability, we've got a great sustainability committee. They're very aggressive. They're very bright. We are electrifying as much as we can transportation. We need to insist that companies like Amazon use electric trucks in the city. We've added more charging stations. We're starting to give rebates to help people buy electric cars, cool roofs, battery storage, wind, solar. We have to look at all of it. We're here in Southern California, and unless the smoke is up, you can see the sun and you can use it every day. It's very reliable.
That's
We've got a great utility.
thank you very much, Council Member. Mr. Schultz.
Well, thank you. In the course of my line of work, I've had the opportunity to lead investigations into several of Southern California's largest wildland fires. And I can tell you there's multiple causes, including intentional ignition, electrical equipment failure. Point is that this is a very nuanced issue. So obviously we need to make sure that our electrical equipment and grid is up to date. But we also need to make sure that our firefighters are equipped with the very best tools and technology so that they can go out and do what they need to do and return home safely for their families. That's why they've chosen to stand with me in this race, and I'm so grateful to have their support. But on the issue of sustainability and climate recovery, Burbank can lead the region by doing several important things. We can update the greenhouse gas reduction plan. We can put BWP on track to a 100% renewable energy portfolio by the end of the decade. We can increase our storage capacity, as Mr. Herman pointed out. We can follow Sustainable Burbank Commission's recommendation to hire a sustainability coordinator, which I would do. I would invest in mass transit options, including metro rail, bus systems. Drought-resistant landscape is going to be a key part of the future. Extending the Chandler bike path so that it finally connects through our city, through the city of Glendale and to Los Angeles is going to be a huge part of the future. And if we do all those things and really commit ourselves to not just serving the people here in Burbank, that's a big part of it. Having transit options for our residents is key, but making it easier to commute to and from Burbank for our transient workforce at times is key to reducing our carbon footprint.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Ms. Takahashi.
Thank you. I just want to mention, keep it local in this 90 seconds. I want to mention that in our local fires that we've had in Burbank and our recovery, we have to really commend our local fire department for the work that they did to keep us safe from the fires that we had a couple of years ago. A couple of years ago in the fire season, we were the first fire of the fire season, and they did a wonderful job with that. And they also did a wonderful job of preparing us for the future by how they replanted and treated the ground. So when it comes to environmentalism, it's clear that most of the candidates here have a long list of environmental reform ideas. And we probably are all pretty similar in that regard. If we lined up all of our ideas, 100% clean energy, drought resistant yards, going to solar, we're probably all pretty similar in that regard. It may be just different levels or what our goals are. But one of the things I think is so important right now is not just that we have those goals, but how we get there. And one of the ways that we need to get there in Burbank is to collaborate and partner with the areas around us. We not only have to do the work in Burbank, but we have to work with Glendale and LA and Pasadena and the airport and work all together on this in a project together to make sure this is happening. So if we're gonna go all electric, we can't go just Burbank because our little city doesn't have the resources to do that. We have to work together with the other. And I've already put in my work to connect with the other cities. I have connections on the Glendale Environmental Coalition. I am endorsed by Dan Brotman, who's one of the environmental champions in Glendale. And I've also worked with Sustainability Commission. So I'm working towards that end.
Thank you, Ms. Takahashi. Mr. Anthony.
Yes, so environmentalism, that's a huge, huge component. But I'm the only candidate in this race who's endorsed by the Sunrise Movement. I'm the only candidate endorsed by Food and Water Action. I'm the only candidate endorsed by R.L. Miller, chair of California Democratic Party's Environmental Caucus. I have so many of these plans and they're on paper and they're actionable and people put their faith in me to put their name next to mine and endorse me. What the first step we can do is take Laura Friedman's bill, 1516, the Defensible Space Bill. The governor vetoed it, but we can pass it at the city level. We can put distance between our homes and the brush and foliage that lights on fire. Why aren't we doing that immediately? I think it's a great bill and Laura Friedman wrote it fantastically for the whole state. We can do it here in the city. Battery storage is a huge component of solar energy. I have friends who are in Burbank Water and Power right now with a stack of papers ready to pass this clean energy movement, and they're just not getting the go-ahead from our current city council. So we need to move on this. John F. Kennedy, he said by the end of the decade, he'd put a man on the moon. I think by the end of this decade, we can get Burbank to 100% renewable energy. It can be done.
Thank you, Mr. Anthony. Okay, we're going to shift to our next question. It's our second.
Hello?
Oh, Ms. Besson, I'm so sorry. I checked you off because I'm I love checking things off on lists. Go ahead, I apologize.
No problem, thank you. So yeah, I think a lot of us in this forum are very much aligned on this issue. I think all of us believe climate change is real. I think we need to have a cultural shift in certain parts of the city that accepts that understanding and that reality. And I think if we accept that as the culture in Burbank, it's not just BWP, it's not just the Recycle Center, it's not just sustainable efforts. It has to be from the top down through the entire community so that as someone enters Burbank, if they're coming here to work or to play, they understand that this is the culture in our city, that we are sustainable, that we care, and this is how we function. And that if all our residents and all our visitors support this, and we have that cultural shift, then we would be amazed at how clean our streets could get, how clean our air could get, and so on. So there's a big picture here that needs to be part of all these discussions.
Thank you very much, and apologies again. Now for real, we're gonna get to the next question. Okay, so we're gonna move on to talking about safety and police. So we're talking about the movement to defund the police. What is your thinking in regards to this as you reconsider the role of police and the role they play in public safety? So I believe Joy put the order of the question. Thank you, but we will begin with Mr. Herman.
Thank you very much. That's a very good question and very, worth that we're having on the national stage, I think, throughout the country. As it relates to Burbank, though, Burbank Police Department has reformed over the last. There's no doubt that there were some issues with Burbank PD in the past. Some said that kind of a cowboy mentality. As I think this current staff has brought in, a level of professionalism within our organization, built in layers of transparency. We do have, independent review. I'm very happy that the office this come to agreement on body cams. So to that end, our police has done a great job of making the reforms that other departments, people around the country are asking their departments to make. So I think the people in Burbank really appreciate the level of professionalism that our police department, the safety that our department brings to our community. That being said, kind of make an evaluation of utilization of resources. So one thing I'd like to see happen is our health that team is composed of officers, social worker, and a clinical therapist who they deal with this, teens dealing with depression to seniors dealing with Alzheimer's and kind of everything in between. We only have one team. They operate 4-hour shifts. I'd like to at least double that so we could have a team available every day of the week. Another thing I'd like is add business improvement districts to the park and to the. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Herman. Ms. Manukian.
So I think, I'll have to second what Mr. Herman said. There are not egregious instances of police brutality here the way that we see, in other states. But I don't think that, that necessarily means that there isn't room for improvement. Like Mr. Herman said, they do have an independent audit group that comes and audits the police department. The audit from last year said that, they could use more scrutiny when analyzing misconduct allegations. I think that this is something that the police department knows needs to be improved internally. And it's something that, our POC community knows can be improved internally as well. And I think that really what they want from, the recent BLM marches, what they said that they want is to have transparency and open communication with the police department, because discussion is really how you improve society and you progress. So in that regard, I think we really do need to listen to that community and kind of address those needs. And I think the common response is, well, why would we need to reform our police department at all if there are no issues? Why would we defund and things like that? And to that, I would say, I think you need to look at the larger picture. California and Los Angeles, this area specifically, it's really looked up to, and Burbank has a chance to set a precedent and set an example for the rest of the police departments. While we don't need major overhaul here, we can take steps towards, more de-escalation training, more mental health training. And I think that that would really set an example for the rest of the state and kind of guide the nation in a good direction.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Murphy.
Yeah, this is a very current topic, and the problem that I see, just to start with, is the discussion is not being heard because the word defund. We have a huge senior population. We have a huge population who loves their police department, and we say that, they just stop listening, and that's not good, because this is a decision that needs to be made by all of us. There was no one who sits on a city council anywhere that if you bring them a better idea that's cheaper and everyone's safe and it's reasonable, you're going to adopt it. Probably 10 letters from people who don't want to defund the police for every one that I get that want to defund the police. So first thing, take the word defund away. Let's call reimagining the police department. We do that all the time. Our police department is a very good place. 9 years of reforms, new recruiting, new training, all of our material, everything about the police department's on the website. You could not be more transparent. It's all there. Use of force, anything you want to see, you can see it. We've got the independent commission, the OIR. We've got the police commission, which is independent as well and advises us. The Burbank Police Department's a model throughout the nation. People come here regularly from other departments to look at our MET program, which is an outstanding program. And sure, I'd love to see it expanded. So there's a lot to do. It's really hard to look at, they're a racist. It's hard to look in someone's heart. I'm sure we have a few, and there's a lot we can do together.
Thank you very much, Council Member. Mr. Schultz.
Thank you, Emily. I work as a white-collar criminal prosecutor. I have the opportunity to go to work every day with men and women in uniform who are state and federal law enforcement officials and some locals too. And I know the dedication that they bring to the job, just like our fine folks at BPD. They put their lives on the line, they kiss their families goodbye every day, not knowing what they're going to encounter on the job. It's imperative that we send them out there with the equipment that they need and the safety training to go home and return to their families every night. With all of that said, I can't deny what I have seen with my own eyes in the courtroom. I have seen an inherently unfair and unjust criminal justice system that treats people differently on the basis of the color of their skin or the amount of money that they have in their pocket. It is high time that we acknowledge that Black Lives Matter. Of course they do, and it should not be controversial to say that. Now, what can we do in Burbank? We need to rebuild trust between communities of color, which have, as a matter of fact, been disproportionately impacted by police abuse and misconduct. Now, I applaud the council for re-examining our use of force policy. We need a use of force policy that outlines when certain tactics and weapons can be utilized, and of course requires that officers exhaust non and less lethal use of force options. We need a greater and more diversified police commission because we need those voices of color now more than ever. And we need further investments in preventative and rehabilitative and restorative justice programs. If we do that, we can win this together. It is not an us versus them conversation, and we all need to realize that. They are with us and we are one.
That's time.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Ms. Takahashi.
Thank you. Black Lives Matter. And we're fortunate enough to have a police department that's ahead in the game than a lot of police departments. But right now we have an opportunity that presents itself to re-examine and look closer at how our police is handling systemic racism. Because systemic racism is real. Systemic racism is different than what we traditionally look at as racism. It's inherent in the system and it's very hard to see. And what I would like to see is a model that's similar to what we're working on at the Burbank Unified School District Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee. So we're working on this committee, and what we're discovering is that the way to really address systemic racism is to first define what racism is, and then to come up with an anti-racism policy on what it is exactly that that department is doing to be anti-racist. So you can say, we're department's not racist, but until there's an anti-racist policy, that's not actually really clear what that means. And so to get there, you need conversation. Every single week we have a conversation, and we have help from a consultant about what anti-racism is, and it's making us look really hard at the reality of what it's like in the school district. And a lot of it is not overt things. It's not things that we would then put on YouTube or something and point at. They're subtle and they're difficult to pinpoint. And so these are the things that need to be discussed in conversation in a together way, not us versus them, not how dare you, but how can we work together? And I want to make one last point before my time's up about defunding the police. One of the suggestions has been, oh, it's up? I'm sorry, I didn't see the sign. Okay, sorry about that.
Thank you, Ms. Takahashi. Mr. Anthony.
Yeah, so if you go to my website, you'll see that I'm calling for defunding, demilitarizing, and decoupling our police department. Now, these are just words on paper, right? We need policy to actually back them up. Now, this is not an abolishment of the police force, but we do spend $61 million a year on police. So for me, when looking at those numbers, it's important for us to remove our police department from the school district. We don't need school resource officers anymore. That is an outdated mode of usage for uniformed officers. We also need to stop forcing our cops to write tickets. Parking tickets should be the purview of the transportation department. Every officer I've talked to who graduates the academy, they want to chase bad guys. They want to write tickets for somebody who's 5 minutes over the parking limit. And finally, we need to separate our mental health evaluation team from the police department. The last thing somebody going through a mental health crisis needs is a badge and a gun showing up to their house, making them think that because they're having issues mentally, that they're suddenly a criminal. So we do not need to treat the mentally ill as criminals. So that is what I believe Burbank Police Department needs to do with defund, demilitarize, and decouple. We also need to change the way we do stops. Anytime somebody is stopped in Burbank, unless it leads to an arrest, no demographic data is taken. We need to write down who is being stopped and then not arrested to see if there is race at play here. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anthony. Ms. Besson.
There's two topics I want to talk about in this very short time. Certainly we can talk about a lot more. One is there are a lot of responsibilities that have been placed on the shoulders of our police department that are not part of public safety, that are part of social services. And I think it would benefit our police department and benefit our community and benefit those who are served to take those away from the police department and give those to people who do social services. If someone is having a mental health crisis, there's no one else for us to call but the police department. There needs to be other resources. I know we have the mental health team, but that's only for downtown Burbank. We need more. This is more than what funding is given to the police department. We can take that funding and give it to mental health experts. The other part is there are voices in our community that are now speaking out that have never felt comfortable speaking out before, and we need to listen to them. We cannot speak for them. They must be heard, and they must be heard by our police department. And it's not a matter of them calling into a police commission meeting. There needs to be, when we can do this safely, a town hall for people to speak, to say what's on their minds and their experiences and how they feel. I've had the opportunity to speak with numerous people of color in Burbank, and their experiences are not being echoed in this group by some of these candidates. We need to listen, and our police department needs to listen, and our city council needs to listen and then act on what they hear.
That's time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Besson. Lastly, Mr. Gogan. You're muted if you want to unmute. There you go.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I want to say that I'm not in favor of any type of defunding the police department. That would be number one. You know, I've spoken to over 1,000 people in this community who are strongly opposed to the idea. However, some good thought have come out of this when it comes to mental health. And I agree. There is something that we could do with mental health. And for right now, if we want to bring on more resources to help mental health to be out there in the community, walking the streets and taking care of those people that are homeless or have mental health issues, that would be great. I guess that would have to come to a vote. But I would not be in favor of defunding the fire department nor the police department. We are, as a city, the most sufficient city in our community. In fact, we are so together as a city that Glendale and Pasadena are now dipping into our resources to help them with issues that we're already helping ourselves with. That's how much we are together. And I wish that we could get to that point where we can help people with mental health, really. But I don't want that to be a total focus by defunding.
Thank you very much. This last question, near and dear to my heart, how will you deal with the funding crisis in our Burbank schools? And I know that Joy is going to put the order in the chat, but we're going to begin with Ms. Manukian.
So I think I mentioned this a little bit in the beginning, but it's also an issue that is very near and dear to my heart. You know, as being both someone who's worked in our schools and someone who's attended all our schools, our public school system is great, but there are several improvements that can be made, both in terms of reinstating programs that have been cut, increasing teacher salaries, because they certainly do not get paid enough to deal with a lot of things that they have to deal with. And you know, it's very difficult to kind of navigate the funding for the schools because, you know, we get a set amount from, you know, the federal level. And I think with the parcel tax and things like that, there is a group that does oppose, you know, increasing taxes. So it's kind of a hard road to navigate. And what I would say is I am open to exploring all options for increasing funding, whether that be through a parcel tax, whether that be through Prop 15, which increases commercial property taxes, or whether that be through, you know, independent sources, either, you know, reallocating city funding or finding some ways to, you know, make our schools more profitable in a sense. So I'm definitely open to exploring those options, but that is going to be one of my priorities to, you know, get more funding for our schools, because the children really are the future of Burbank and the future of our nation. So it's important that we, you know, pay attention to them and give them the things that they need.
Thank you very much, Ms. Manukian. Councilmember Murphy.
Well, this is a question that really doesn't make any sense. The city council has nothing to do with the schools other than supporting the school board, supporting the unified district. We have nothing to do with their funding. And I could make all the rules I want and they could ignore me because I have no authority, I have no jurisdiction. Having said that, I've worked on both parcel taxes. It's been disheartening to lose. I did talk to the consultant a long time ago and he said it takes 3 times to pass. The lottery's a complete lie. The state has totally mismanaged the schools and their funding, and we need pressure there. This is a lot like the fires. We need to get together as a region and fight for our fair share. No, if we can add a 0.5% to the sales tax, I think most people would vote for it, even though none of us wants to pay any more, and have that money go straight to the schools. I don't believe we can do that legally, but why not find a way? You've got Prop 15 that you can endorse and walk for and try to push, and that's going to help the schools a lot. I think it's a minimum of $10 million. We need all of it. Classroom sizes are expanding, teachers are in trouble, supplies are non-existent. So there's a lot we can try to do, but again, we don't have any jurisdiction, and it's just a matter of helping our elected representatives on the board, and I'm willing to do whatever I can, and I have done that. I've put my name on the line each and every time. I also have been sending in my money for the parcel tax, even though it didn't pass. A lot of people could do that. Put your money where your mouth is.
Thank you, council member. Mr. Schultz.
Thank you, Emily. You know, this is an issue that's near and dear to my heart. I'm the first person in my family to go to college or any sort of higher level education, and I understand the importance of a good quality public education. In fact, it is one of the most important aspects what makes Burbank so great. We have tremendous public schools, and we can't allow our kids to suffer. But here's what I would say. I do want to echo something that Councilmember Murphy said. We do have an independently elected Burbank Unified School District Board, of which I will note that our fine moderator and a good personal friend of mine is running to sit on. Go Emily Weisberg.
Thanks.
But what I would say is this. Just because it is their decision to make doesn't mean that we can't use the bully pulpit and our role as community leaders to work with them and to find creative solutions. And I'll give you one quick example. A few months ago, when I had decided to run, I had sat down with a few members of the school board, and one in particular had a good conversation with me about getting creative. You know, there might be ancillary programming that the city could pick up in theory, like mental health services in schools. I think it's that kind of creative, outside the box thinking that we need to explore. But we also need to understand the scenario we are in. We are in an unprecedented global pandemic and financial fallout with no end in sight. We simply don't know when the ship will be righted, and we can't assume that Prop 15 or any other measure is actually going to pass. So we have to plan for the worst. We have to work with the school board, empower them, and show up and be as good friends and allies as we can possibly be.
That's time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schultz. Ms. Takahashi.
Wonderful. So as a couple other candidates already said, is that the school district is in its jurisdiction of the school board. I know that there have been some suggestions floated here and there throughout the campaign about giving money to the schools, but the city cannot do that. They don't have the jurisdiction to do that. But there are ways the city can support the school district. It already does and hasn't been mentioned yet. So the city pays for the resource officers, the school resource officers, the crosswalk, people who work at the crosswalks, and also the usage of ball fields. So these are all partnerships with different departments in the city. So that's where the school district and the city can work together on how to partner to use resources that we share. And that really needs making sure that the city council and the school board are in close contact. And from what I understand, that's already happening pretty well. And I want to continue that with my relationships that I have. I'm already endorsed by one of the school board members, Steve Ferguson, and I have close relationships with the other school board members as well. And I will continue that partnership. I also want to say that this time right now during COVID is an absolutely wonderful time to reimagine education. So when we go back to school, it will look different. So my background's in nonprofits, and in nonprofits, we always have to do more with less. And this is an opportunity now during COVID where we can reimagine school and potentially find ways we can partner together to find ways to work with the library, the Parks and Rec, and the other programs to bring together different ideas for how we can reduce costs in our school system.
Thank you, Ms. Takahashi. Mr. Anthony.
Yeah, my son, he's in 3rd grade right now over at Miller. He just qualified for the GATE program. And then the school board cut $3.8 million and removed the GATE program. So he's not getting that this year. So for me, this is, it's very important that we get the school district up and funded. I worked on Measure QS, I worked on Measure I canvassed, I knocked doors, I made phone calls, I did text banking. Yet we still did not get the 66.7% of the vote needed to pass a parcel tax through the school district. So we need to do it through the city. 2 years ago, we passed a sales tax. That same year, Pasadena also passed a sales tax and a transfer of 30% of that sales tax to the school district. But we didn't do that here in Burbank. And I don't know why. I don't know why we don't have a working relationship with the school district, but we should have passed that transfer in that same year. For me, I believe the city should pass a parcel tax to fund the school district and at the same time pass another ordinance transferring that money to the school district. But I'd like to make one change to the parcel taxes that I've seen in Burbank. I would like to exempt the first 1,500 square feet. That would protect small homeowners and small businesses from having to pay into this tax while still holding the largest corporations in Burbank accountable. This is the way we can help our school district through the city council. It's totally legal and totally doable, and other cities have done it.
Thank you, Mr. Anthony. Ms. Besson.
Thank you. I think what we're seeing here is the end result of a deterioration of the relationship between our government, local government in terms of city council and school board. I think that our schools have been teetering on the brink for a while. Our community knew this, certainly our parents knew this, our PTA knew this, but it was ignored. And this teetering, this falling off a cliff in terms of funding is detrimental to our relationship. Everyone should realize how that's going to affect their property values. Everyone should realize how that's going to affect the quality of life in Burbank. So this is all of our problem. I do not have children, but I am an advocate for our schools because this is part of the foundation of our community. We can develop programs that are mutually beneficial to both the city and our schools. One example, a small one, but it's an example, is that our students' library cards our student ID cards can be used as library cards at our public libraries. We can look for ways to extend resources that do not add cost to our city, that help our schools during this crisis. What about broadband? There are so many students that are virtual now that don't have access to broadband, that park in their cars outside the Buena Vista Library in order to get broadband, to get Wi-Fi. Why aren't we doing more about that? So there are things that we can do that are not, I mean, a lot of people are talking about the future. I'm talking about the now.
That's time.
Thank you, Ms. Besson. Mr. Gogan.
Well, I don't know why every single one of our wonderful candidates here passed over some facts about the school district, including Mr. Murphy. We already help the schools in our community. I mean, the school in Burbank, they get a discount on utility rates. When it comes to electricity, the schools get the police department protection, they get fire safety protection. And when we have more money in the budget to add the school's needs, we should have more resource officers when we have the money. The interesting part is that a few years ago, we voted on a bond. And I have to tell you that the people in Burbank are intelligent. If they felt that the education needs were being taught properly in the schools, I'm sure that bond measure would have passed with flying colors. But they know differently. And it makes me upset because the school needs to get back on track with teaching the way they should be teaching, the subject matter, and not some political nonsense, which is not necessary. I support all the Burbankians who want to have a better school system. I think that the PTA can grab money from donations from major corporations, like in our own backyard, Disney Corporation.
Thank you very much. And lastly, Mr. Herman.
Thank you. We're blessed in Burbank to have such a great system, and I'm the beneficiary of it. I have kids in BUSD schools. My daughter Agnes is an 8th grader at Jordan, and my son Dean, 4th grader at McKinley. My wife also is a teacher. She's a teacher with LAUSD. She's been tenured prior to the recession, so she's a benefits package. And I've asked her over the years to take a look at moving over from LAU to Burbank Unified. So she would take about a 30% pay cut and salary and benefits to make that switch. And that's just not right, and that's fair. So there really is a wage gap, and that's something that needs to be resolved. And personally, in our school district, I want to make sure that our district have the adequate. The solution to that is we need a tax. I was in favor of Measure Gas, in favor of that. I was also in favor of Measure I. Did vote for Measure I was wrong. I really felt that the district didn't build a broad enough coalition. They didn't in the business community, and that's something that I try to plan for between the business community and our local school district. Didn't really received well, but I think as a charge, I'd like to give it another go. I think our district needs this, and we need the parcel tax.
That's time.
Thank you very much. So what we're going to move into next are the questions that I've collected from the chat. Marty or Joy, how much time are we allotting to this?
We are about 10 minutes over schedule, so 30 minutes.
Okay, so candidates, you'll still have 90 seconds to respond to each question. I'm going to be asking the questions in the order that I received them. Some of the questions are for all the candidates, some of them are for individual candidates, but please know I've literally been cutting and pasting from the chat, and I'm just going straight down in the order that I got them, okay? And I would like to also remind everyone to please be the mature, respectful community members I know you are in the chat. Thank you. Okay, so let me get to the document. Okay, this first question is for Mr. Schultz directly. How do you feel equipped to address the many issues discussed in this forum as a relatively new resident to Burbank?
That's an excellent question. I think I could answer it in one of 3 different ways. The first thing I could tell you is I'm a dedicated public servant. I go to work every single day to protect Californians from risks of fraud or threats of violence. And I can tell you that it takes a special something to serve the public. And I applaud all the members of our school board and our city council, including Councilmember Murphy. It's difficult to put the public's interest over your own, but it's such an incredibly important and righteous and honorable task. And I know what I'm getting into, and I'm ready to roll up my sleeves on day one. I can tell you I'm a lawyer, which I am, and I know how laws can and should be written and how they can be interpreted in different ways. But here's what I think the question's really getting at. I am relatively new to living in Burbank, but my wife, Allie, and I, when we moved to Los Angeles several years ago, we immediately knew Burbank is where we wanted to call home for all the reasons that we've talked about today. But we wanted to be here the right way. We wanted to buy. We wanted to buy our home. And so for years, we saved and we did the fiscally responsible thing until we could buy and join this community as lifelong members who are going to be here for the rest of our lives and send our kids to Burroughs and hopefully our grandkids too. And I'll tell you what, there are barriers to being here and staying here, and I have lived them and I understand that. And the working class needs a fighter on council, and that's what I'm going to be. The last point I'll make in the 10 seconds I have or so is that over the course of this campaign, I have talked to so many voters who've never received a call from a candidate, who have felt disenfranchised in the process. And I'm here to bring them, give them a seat at the table, and open the doors to City Hall wide open. That's what qualifies me.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. This next question is for all candidates. Joy, I don't know how you want to go, the order we want to go in. I can just redo the order that we've been doing. Why don't we start with this first one and we'll just go alphabetical for this first one, and then we'll figure it out as we go. So the next question that was asked is, do we really have a housing crisis? Not everyone can live everywhere. So we'll begin this question with Mr. Anthony.
That's an excellent question. So I worked for 5.5 years in property management, and the vacancy rate in Burbank right now is 1.5%. when you want is an equilibrium of 5%. That's usually when you have equal power between landlords and tenants to negotiate prices. When you come down to 1.5%, all the power is in the hands of the landlords because there's just nowhere else to rent or buy. So yes, we are in a housing crisis. More so, we're in an affordable housing crisis. So unequivocally, absolutely, we are in a housing crisis here in Burbank.
Thank you very much. Miss Essen. I know my alphabet.
Yeah, I mean, that's capitalism. That's supposedly supply and demand. But the fact is that doesn't fit our reality today. If we are going to thrive as a community, if we're going to have the economy we want, if we want to have the schools that we want, we need to expand. We need to look at our housing, look at what our needs are, and understand that, let me find the right words for this. There's a growth to our community to keep it vibrant, to keep it modern. And if we turn people away, if we only keep ourselves isolated with those who live here, if we do not create diversity in our community, through all different income levels, through all different socioeconomic levels, through all different races, then we are suffocating ourselves as a community. So this is a bigger problem than just capitalism. This is about who we want to be as Burbank. What is the kind of city we want to be? I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gogan.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yes, the question was, is there really a housing crisis in Burbank? Not everyone can live everywhere.
Well, that's not too much of a loaded question, but let me just say that out of the 1,000 people that I had a chance to talk to, 100% of the people did point out that they did not want a high-rise built next to their nice little home, which makes this city so quaint. I know that there's R1 and R1H that I am totally into protecting in our community. And that is the focus right there. We can have affordable housing on some of these properties if they wish to allow a small home to be built in their backyard, just as long as it doesn't rise over the other neighbors. We have to be respectful to our neighbors. We should ask questions of our neighbors of what is that support for the community. And once they all agree, then we can move ahead. And so far, we just kind of dump things down their throats when it's not necessary. So R1 and R1H is something that we should pay attention to for all of our communities here in Burbank.
Thank you very much. Mr. Herman.
So have a housing crisis? Absolutely. And it's at two levels, right? We have both a local housing crisis and a regional housing crisis. Locally, we have a jobs to imbalance ratio here in this Burbank of 3-to-1. That means we have 3 jobs in this for every 1 housing unit. Most people don't realize this, but our population in the city of Burbank on a daily basis, this is pre-COVID, but Monday we'd have 200,000 people in our city where our population is only about 106. So to be resolved on the local level, yes, we have a housing crisis because it'd be nice if people who work in our city were able to live in our city, including our firefighters and officers and our city workers. The regional need is this. A regional housing needs assessment, our RHINA assessment, it says that Burbank needs about 6,000 to 8,000 homes over the next, or housing units over the next decade. If we don't do something to address that, Sacramento for us and the people in Burbank are not going to like the results because Burbank will cease to exist as the Burbank you know today.
Thank you very much. I have unfortunately had to disable the chat. It's disappointing to me that people cannot be respectful of all of our candidates, whether or not you support their political point of view. They're all dedicated community members, some of whom are current serving civil servants, and the fact that we cannot conduct ourselves accordingly is a great disappointment to me. So unfortunately, the chat is shut down. I feel like I'm in my middle school classroom. All right, Ms. Manukian, the floor is yours.
I think I'll have to go ahead and second, what Ms. Besson and Mr. Herman said. I 1000% agree. There is a housing crisis. Yes, not everyone can afford to live everywhere, but why is that the case? And I'll have to agree. It's really pushing out the people that cannot afford to live here is pushing out the diversity in our community, and it's leaving those sites vacant. If nobody can afford to live there, then you are driving out people who are going to be contributing to the economy. I think that we all have a vested interest in Burbank having a great economy. And, if we push out the people that want to live here and want to contribute to our small businesses, then exactly like Mr. Herman said, we are going to be left with a Burbank that is not like the Burbank that we have right now.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Murphy.
Well, every question and every answer depends on kind of where you sit. If you're on an island and you don't want any people on the island, you pull up the drawbridge and there you are. And they don't see this as a housing crisis. Sacramento tells us we have a major housing crisis. And if we don't do things, they intend to do what they want to do, including eliminate our, including, build whatever they want, whether we like it or not. I agree with what Mr. Herman, have a population about 107,000. Any given day, we've got 200,000 people in the city, most of them wishing that they could live here and not have to commute for an hour. A lot of those are employees. People tell us we pay them too much. Apparently we don't, based on where we live. But we have to look at our RENA numbers. We have to. That's why we presented our plan to the state, which was accepted, to build 12,000 units over the next 15 years. I'm not sure that number will last. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Council Member. Mr. Schultz.
So if I recall the question correctly, it was, is there a housing problem? Yes, that's a simple answer. And for all the reasons that I had to address in my previous answer, I've lived that. There are barriers to being here and staying here, but not just for homeowners, for renters too, who are a part of our community as well. I would go as far as to say that the people that work here and can't afford to live here, they're just as much a part of our community. They're the people who are serving us at restaurants. They are the people that are cleaning up our streets. Look, we are a broad community. We have so many people that make up who we are, and it is time that we get serious about tackling our housing crisis. Now, there are some ways we can do that. For all of the people that are at issue right now, anxious about housing stability, I applaud the City Council for the steps that they have taken to keep people in their homes. Now is not the time when people should be thinking or worrying about eviction. But as I've said over and over again, and I know many of my candidates and colleagues agree with me on this, we need to get serious about adding affordable housing options to the city of Burbank. And there are a variety of ways that we can do that, including ADUs, including new construction in the Golden State District, which I'm very much a fan of. But at the end of the day, this is the big problem. We have to acknowledge that there is a problem, that there is a housing shortage, and that we have to roll up our sleeves and be part of the solution. I'm ready to do that, and let's get started.
Thank you. Lastly, Ms. Takahashi.
The question is there a housing crisis? Yes, there is, because the housing crisis, basically the definition of that is, can people live where they work? And as several candidates have already said, that in Burbank, far too many people cannot live where they work. So we have so many jobs here, and so many of those jobs, people have to commute in from surrounding areas that don't have the jobs in order to work here. And what that does is it creates two Burbanks. It creates the Burbank of people living here and the Burbank of people working here. And we need to see that Venn diagram come together closer. And so solving the housing crisis brings that Venn diagram together closer. And I also think that part of this is not just Burbank. Worldwide, in first world countries, we are seeing in urban areas housing crisis where the jobs are in urban areas and the living spaces are not there. So that's not just here, it's everywhere. And so we all have to do our part to fill in the missing middle. But here's a big question I have. We are in the middle of COVID and so much has changed right now. Here's a big question. How is that going to change this dynamic? Will we now have more remote workers? Will the pressure be off? So I think it's really important to be flexible and adaptable as we move out of COVID to see how this is going to change. We still need to build housing. We still have a housing crisis because even if that pressure is relieved a little bit, there's still a demand. but it may change things. And I think it's important to be adaptable as we move forward through COVID to see how working and workforces change over time.
Thank you very much. This next question is also for all of the candidates. How do you plan to engage with unions in Burbank to help protect workers and fight for higher wages? I think we'll go in the order that we went with question 2. Okay. So that will begin with Mr. Goggins. And if you want me to repeat the question, please let me know.
Well, I've had many, many years of experience, almost 40 years of working in the Screen Actors Guild as a union member. However, I was also a board member, so I have to tell you, I've sat on the board with negotiating for higher wages. I know what that's all about. I have that experience. And every time that I sat on that board for that subject, we won. So I can bring that over to the city easily. We have an industry called the film industry, and already everyone's admitted that that's really the focus of the money from this city or this area. And what we want to do is we need to keep it in the area. And so I propose that we have a filming commission. That would be the most important thing. A one-stop place where a production company can go in, file for the permits that are necessary. The city will have a relationship with that production company, but also the community will also. So it will bring that together as what it should have been years ago, as we are the not just the entertainment capital of the world, but we are the media capital of the world. And I see that happening, especially within the next few years when I'm elected to this council.
Thank you. Mr. Herman.
So as I mentioned before, my wife is a tenured LAUSD LA member. And, you know, what concerns more than anything, and first off, I'd also do believe in fair pay for fair work, but what concerns me more than anything right now is our pension obligations to our public employees. And that's something, you know, my wife is invested in CalCERS, and our local city employees, our local IB workers, fire, they're invested CalPERS. And I'm really concerned with the stability of our CalPERS system and of the investment portfolio. And what concerns me right now is the Federal Reserve is dumping a lot of money to buoy these public employees' pensions and the stock markets in general. And if there's anything that happens that will diminish the value of those investments, our city has to be prepared to address that. Two things. One is we need to work on making sure over the next 2 to 3 fiscal years that we manage the financial crisis caused by the pandemic. We can remain whole and committed to our pension obligations for our public employees. The second thing is we have to continue to grow our economic because these liabilities will continue to grow. We've a rate of 7% annualized, and we have to meet those obligations. In order to be able to do that, we will need to continue to grow our economic base. I don't believe taxing is the solution. I believe growing our economic bases. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Manukian.
Again, I think I'll agree with Mr. Herman regarding the pension obligations. I do think that that's something that, you know, the unions that I've spoken to have, you know, pointed out that that's an issue for them that they want addressed. So I think that that's definitely something that I would, you know, be open to supporting the unions with. With discussions with AFSCME and the Burbank Teachers Association, I think that the number one thing I've come to realize is really that these unions just want support. They want to be heard, and they want to kind of help guide the conversation in a direction of the things that they want. So I think to answer the question regarding, you know, what is my stance on unions and how will I help? I think you know, if elected, will be a support system and kind of an open person that they can come to, and we can discuss, you know, what exactly are the needs and desires of workers and how can the city help them and support them in their endeavors.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Murphy.
Yeah, I can't help but engage with the unions. I'm already doing that as part of my job. We have a pay system that both sides like. We pay the average salary of a survey cities. We have 8 cities that we look at that are similar to us in size and makeup, and we look to keep our employees at the average. Sometimes they're above it, sometimes they're below it. It depends on when the contracts are. We have a fair pay policy. Same with the benefits. They get the average of what everyone gets, so that they're paid well. Both sides seem happy. The negotiations are done by our management services office. I get calls from all the union heads when they have a concern. Everybody's got my home phone number. Most of the citizens in the city have my home phone number. They love to call. It's not a problem. The same with my email. They've all got it, and they call and we talk. If a union head feels that he's being disrespected or she's not getting what her people need, they give their point of view, and we go back and talk to our negotiators. Normally it comes out fine. The employees are great. And as far as the pension liability is concerned, we've been working on that to bring it down so that all of our employees pay 50% of their pension, which makes the city healthier. It's a great program. I'd love to spend some time and explain it to you, but I'm not going to be allowed to do it here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Council Member. Mr. Schultz.
Well, thank you very much. This is an issue that's very near and dear to my heart, specifically how we involve unions. I myself am a union member. I hail from a family with a prominent union member. No one in my family had gone to college, but it was my grandfather's union job that provided for our family and gave me every opportunity to be up here on this platform, this virtual platform today, and to have the opportunities that I have had. And I want to create economic ladders of opportunity for every family in Burbank. A lot of people ask me why I ran in the first place. Simply put, it's to bring new, good-paying jobs, jobs with benefits, jobs with PPE for our frontline workers to the city of Burbank. And unions have spoken loud, and they are standing in solidarity with me. I'm endorsed by the Burbank Firefighters Local 778, IATSE Locals 33 and 892, IBEW Local 11, IUOE Local 12, Plumbers and Pipe Fitters 761, and UFCW, just to name a few. And by the way, when we're talking about these union workers, UFCW is not an outside interest. These are the people that are risking their health to bag our groceries, get bonds every single week. And it goes back to my point about they're part of this community too. And how I'm going to bring them to the table is through the Burbank Economic Recovery Task Force. We're going to give them a seat at the table alongside our entertainment and production studios, our small business, our entrepreneurs and retailers, and we are going to design and execute a comprehensive growth and development plan to lead us on the path of economic recovery that's specific to Burbank's local economy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schultz. Where am I? Miss Takahashi.
Thank you. So before I begin, I want to give a shout out to one of my inspirations, which is Dolores Huerta. If you haven't yet seen Dolores Huerta's the documentary about her called Dolores, I highly recommend it, about the history of the farm union workers. So my background is in nonprofits, and in nonprofits, you have to do a lot of negotiations with not necessarily unions, but to work with other organizations and other companies and people who you need to talk about realities. If we don't have a lot of money, how can we make this work? And one of those examples is I'm on the Magnolia Park Merchants Association board, and we have been working together. Small business owners don't have a union. So we are working together for collective bargaining with the city to try to be able to get help and assistance and partnership with the CDD and the EDD departments. And so these kinds of negotiations take time to develop relationships and to develop consensus and collaboration and big picture thinking. So it's a balance between what both sides want and being able to understand both sides and having fairness on both sides, and with unions, fair pay for fair work. And I think another one I just wanted to point out really quick, since I only have a few seconds, is programs like the Carpenters Union. The Carpenters Union has programs that bring people out of poverty and bring people into work. And as a city, we can really help those programs as well to help our residents be able to have more work opportunities as well. So those are also ways we can partner with the unions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Anthony.
You know, Burbank is a union town, going all the way back to Skunk Works and the Lockheed plant. And yet, to this day, we still don't have a community workforce agreement on our developments. The unions do not get a say in what gets built and how it gets built. They have to negotiate on every single contract. So one of the things I would propose in my first 100 days is a community workforce agreement with the local unions partnering to write it. One of the things I hear from all of the unions that I'm in contact with is how do we rehire back the workers who were lost during the pandemic? A lot of times, companies will fire their most seasoned workers and then after the pandemic, hire new workers at lower pay. So we need a right of first return for our workers in the city. And that's something I will vote for as council member. I'm also endorsed by UFCW 770, like Mr. Schultz. Those are our local grocery store workers. I recently have been endorsed by Unite Here Local 11 for my efforts to unionize a hotel here in Burbank. We don't have any union hotels in Burbank, and I've been working on that for a number of years. I also worked on AB5. I spent most of last summer trying to get AB5 passed at the state level because I am an Uber driver and I want to unionize my fellow drivers into collective bargaining agreements. So I've been organizing with unions. I've been working as unions. I'm a member of SAG-AFTRA. I'm a member of SCIU 2015. So I know the work that needs to get done.
Thank you very much. And last but certainly not least, Ms. Besson.
Hi. So there's a reason why unions are needed, and there's a reason why we're having problems today is because unions have been under attack for decades. They've been attacked so to weaken their strength. And we're seeing that result in our economy and even in our local economy. And I think the point about COVID recovery is really vital here, because it doesn't matter how good and how strong the unions are if there are no jobs, and we need to bring back the jobs. That needs to be the focus. I think that we've talked about the entertainment industry, that's really important. But again, let's look at the whole Burbank economy as a whole. If we keep people working, then that funds everything. I mean, in terms of sales tax, in terms of property tax and so on. We haven't yet dealt with what that blow is going to be to our economy. That's coming. And so I think when we talk about unions, when we talk about workforce, again, we have to talk about where can we create the jobs, where are they going to come from, and hopefully they're union because those are strong jobs with good benefits. But we need to make sure that we look at where the jobs are going to be.
Thank you. So we're about to move into the closing of our forums. A humongous thank you to all the candidates for giving so much time, effort, energy, and thought to all of the questions. And a huge thank you to those of you who submitted questions in the chat. I know we were only able to get to a few, but if people are okay with it, and Marty and Joy are as well, I will share the document where I put all the questions. Perhaps we can share them with the candidates. Could be useful because they're really good questions. So we are going to do, is it 1 minute closing? 1 minute closing. Joy is going to put the order in the chat. And again, a huge thank you to everybody for giving up 2 hours on your Saturday. I can think of nothing more important than learning about our city council candidates. We have an embarrassment of riches with everybody on this call, and I feel very lucky to have listened to them this evening. So we'll begin with Councilmember Murphy.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's good to have the dates in one place for the first time. I've been a member of this community for 50 years off and on. I'm married to Gloria Salas. Both of us are incredibly invested in working with the nonprofits, working with the various service clubs. I'm the founder of the Boys and Girls Club. I'm the most qualified candidate in light of the fact that I previously served 1 term on the council. I've just served an additional 3 years. I was a Superior Court Commissioner for 15 years. I'm an attorney, 15 years in the Public Defender's Office, and almost 15 years with my own practice at this point. Experience matters. Qualifications matter. This is not the time in this strange environment with the COVID and all the other things that are going on to pick somebody new to try to figure out what to do. I know what to do. I've turned me around twice in my service, once when Lockheed left and once again when I joined the council in May of 18. I'm the guy that can do it. I'm not the only person, but I should be one of the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, council member. Ms. Takahashi.
Great. Thank you. I've been in the community for 21 years. I have 3 kids, ages 22, 19, and 16. My daughter, 16, is at Burroughs. Well, not technically, because she's here doing remote learning. I've been very involved with the city. I currently sit on the Infrastructure Oversight Board. And as far as I'm aware, other than Mr. Murphy, I'm the only one who's had direct contact with our city budget and managing our city budget. I'm also on the Magnolia Park Merchants Association board, working with them. I'm also on the Friends of the Library board, and I co-manage the bookstore when it was open at the library over at the Central Library. I've also been a long time volunteer with the League of Women Voters, doing education around legislation. Professionally, I've worked in the nonprofit sector for over 10 years. And my nonprofit background, I've been in governance boards for many, many years. We need a candidate on this who is experienced, who knows our city, who has connections in our city, who's been here a long time, and who will be replacing one of our very best council members who's stepping down. Who, Emily Gabeletti, has given me her endorsement, and Sharon Springer has also given me her endorsement, as well as the Southern California Armenian Dem Club has also given me their endorsement. One of the important reasons why I got into this was to have more women voices at the table and to have more diverse voices at representation, not less. So I got into this because I wanted to be part of a change. So please vote for Tamala Takahashi for Burbank City Council, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Ms. Manukian.
Again, I want to thank all of you for putting this together and thank everybody here for their time, for also giving up 2 hours to listen and hopefully make an informed decision in November. I am a lifelong Burbank resident, although that is not very long. I'm 22. This is really my only home, the only home that I know. And I think that a huge part of the reason why I'm running is because, I feel such a connection to this place and I want to do my part in making it better. I currently work as a substitute teacher in our city schools, and I think that's also part of my motivation was, kind of seeing that people can't afford to live here. There are a lot of problems aside from that face our residents, and I hope to be the voice for those people. I think one of my strongest traits is, that I listen and I understand, and, I want to be that advocate for people whose voices maybe are not necessarily always heard. And I, again, want to thank all of you so much for your time.
Mr. Herman.
Thank you. Well, I'm very invested in our community. I have 2 kids in BUSD schools. I own a small business here in Burbank. I believe in service to the community. I am involved in a number of boards and commissions. I serve on the Burbank Water and Power Board. I've done that for 5 years. Also, I serve as board chair for the Boys and Girls Club of Burbank in the Greater East Valley. I serve on the board of directors for a local chamber of commerce. I'm public affairs chair for the executive committee. Also, I'm an advisory board member for Woodbury University School of Business. I also serve on our Burbank Noon Rotary local service club. I'm involved with the club, and I also serve on the foundation board as well. I have a broad base of support here in the city. Fortunate to have the endorsements from Mayor Springer, Vice Mayor Frutos, council members Gabeletti and Talamantes, along with the endorsements of 8 former Burbank mayors and over 100 community leaders. And what I'm very proud to announce is I have some endorsements from our local unions, the Burbank Police Officers Association, the Burbank Firefighters Local 778, and the IBEW Local 18, the IBEW here in Burbank. So, I'm blessed to have all of this broad range of support. I believe in representing all of our community. I believe in building better bridges, and I believe in building partnerships within our community. I want to serve you, and I ask for your support. If you'd like to find out more information about me or to support our campaign, please visit www.votepaulherman.com. That's www.votepaulherman.com. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Schultz.
Well, thank you very much for having me, everyone. My name is Nick Schultz, and I'm running for Burbank City Council. I'm running because it is time for new ideas and new energy to tackle these enormous issues unlike anything that Burbank has ever faced. I love this community, and I'm going to be here the next 30, 40, 50 plus years, God willing. And how we rise to meet the moment or fail to do so is going to impact my family and my kids and my grandkids, and that's why I'm running, because it matters personally to me. Now, I'm very fortunate as a dedicated public servant who has devoted his life to serving the public and foregoing the opportunity to make money at a big law firm or doing any of those things I could have done. I'm rolling up my sleeves because the time is now. I'm honored that Burbank firefighters, Assemblymember Laura Friedman, Shar Talbot with the school board, and so many other local leaders have rallied to my cause, and I fully intend to not only win this election, but more importantly, to win for Burbank, to get us on track, to tackle these enormous issues of inequity, and the fact that we have an unprecedented financial crisis. I am the candidate with the economic plan, and you can read all about it and my endorsements at nickforburbank.com. I would be honored to earn your vote on November 3rd. God bless.
Mr. Gogan.
Hi, I'm Michael Lee Gogan, and I'm looking for your support. I want your vote, and here are the reasons why. I'm very strong on protecting our community, preserving our community the way it is on many levels. And also, I see a need for our community to come together on a few issues that are very strong right now, especially when it comes to keeping jobs here in Burbank. You know, I've been in this community for going on 14 years now. And in my 14 years, I've found this city to be very quaint for me and my family. And I cannot imagine living anywhere else. I do get support from many different communities within the Burbank community. And I'm asking now for you to come forward and continue to support me and my candidacy and to be elected. Again, it's Michael Gogan for Burbank. Michael Gogan, goganforburbank.com, Gogan for Burbank. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Ms. Besson.
Thank you. As I mentioned, I've lived in Burbank almost 30 years. This is my home. It will always be my home. And I love my city. I care about what happens here. This is why I'm running. I have no other agenda. I'm not out to move on to other positions. I'm not out to lobby for interests outside of Burbank. My campaign is completely grassroots. I have over 80 volunteers who are working on my campaign. I had a summer internship program with 16 high school and college students from the Burbank area to teach them how a campaign is run, because I wanted to make sure that part of my campaign was giving back to the community, to engage young people and make sure they are a part of this process. My concerns are your concerns. I am not a vested interest with any other type of outside organization or big political party machine. I am of the residents, my friends and my neighbors, and this is who I care about. This is who I want to listen to, and this is who I want to have accessibility to city council and not just certain circles of people. I want the whole community to have access and have a say in how our government is run.
Thank you. Mr. Anthony.
Yeah, I first ran for city council in February of 2017, and since that time I stayed engaged. I've actually been to more city council meetings than any of the other candidates in those last 3 years. I know how the city works. I'm up to date on all of the information, the budget requirements, the ordinances that have been passed, and yet I'm still trying to fight for the diverse working class residents and workers of this city, because the things I was shouting about in 2017 still have not come to pass. So for me, I live by my values. We're paying our staff members $16 an hour plus a healthcare stipend. If you donate to my campaign, that goes back into somebody's pocket, somebody who couldn't get a job during this COVID pandemic because everything's on shutdown. So we're giving back to the community already. I'm chair of the Transportation Commission. I'm a member of the Burbank Advisory Council on Disabilities. I'm an executive board member of PFLAG in Burbank. I'm a member of the Coordinating Council of Burbank. I co-founded the Burbank Tenants' Rights Committee, and I graduated Leadership Burbank in 2018. My campaign is endorsed by the LA County Democratic Party, the Democratic Party of the San Fernando Valley, and the Burbank Democratic Club. I'm also endorsed by DSA LA. So the party and the activists has come together and seen something in me that is so unique and so different than all the other candidates. I'm endorsed by Ground Game. I'm endorsed by the Filipino American LA Democrats. I'm endorsed by the Stonewall Democratic Club. I will tell you, they are ridiculous.
Okay, thank you to all the candidates. Joy and Marty, do you want to wrap it up? Or are we saying goodbye and thank you?
After almost 2 hours, I think it would be only kindness to say thank you. I'm surprised at the depth and intelligence and value of all of what you have presented, and I'm moved by it. I noticed we had 92 people at our peak, and this will be recorded and shared with many more. And I just feel very grateful for your frankness and your vision. And Emily, you were brilliant and fantastic. And Joy, you're the best. You're the best.
Thanks, everybody.
Yes, thank you so much.
Have a good
Thank
rest
you.
of your
It's fantastic.
weekend. Stay
Enjoyed
safe.
that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Marty.
Thanks to all the
Thanks, Joy.
candidates. Really, you're great. Really great.